So we're getting a Pokémon Presents on July 22nd. That's a fair bit of warning. I couldn't quite remember if one has been scheduled this far in advance before, and then I saw Joe from Cerebi tweet that it's unprecedented, so I'm guessing not. I should probably quickly mention the other thing that got announced at the same time before we properly get into it. Pokémon Legends ZA has a release date, October 16. And as someone who is rapidly running out of things to talk about on this channel, I am very happy that my personal prediction of mid to late November was dead wrong. I'm still cautiously optimistic about this game. I'm excited to have something fresh to talk about too. But yeah, Pokémon Presents, July 22nd. What is going to be shown in that Presents? If they hadn't given us the Legends ZA release date and the box art alongside that news, I'd say that I think this Presents will be a huge showcase for that game. But they did give us those two things, so that makes me think that Legends ZA won't be the only focus within that Presents. They're clearing some space for some other stuff, seemingly. I do still think Legends ZA is going to be a significant portion. I think a couple of major story points could be revealed. Emma from X and Y's postgame is on the box art, maybe we'll find out what the deal is there. People have been overanalyzing the hell out of this box art, by the way. It's been kinda wild. It's just box art, it most likely isn't hinting towards anything crazy. I think we're finally going to get a few new Mega Evolutions revealed as well, and the pre-order details along with any special bundle deals. 3 months out from release, that seems like a perfect pre-order window. But the big thing that's haunting our minds at the moment is why has this Pokémon Presents been announced nearly 2 months in advance? Usually it's like a week, if that, if memory serves me right. To be fair, full disclosure, I could be reading into this too much, but I just get the feeling that this might be bigger than just Legends ZA details and pre-order info. So here's what's been swirling around in my brain over the last couple of days. There's going to be very little structure to this video, by the way. This is a ramble in its purest form. Strap in. So outside of Pokémon Legends ZA, we are of course expecting another title dropping at some point in the nearish future. A title that was announced earlier in the year. Pokémon Champions was announced on Pokémon Day back in February, and that was just a teaser trailer really. We really didn't see much. And there are a lot of questions we're waiting on answers to when it comes to that game. So that could be a hefty chunk of the Presents runtime. I also think there's a pretty important thing that needs to be taken into account here, and I had this in the back of my mind for the Pokémon Day Presents too. Game Freak will obviously have held back any Switch 2 centered announcements in that Presents, because at that point we knew of the Switch 2's existence, but we hadn't had the full Switch 2 Direct. That came later in April. So is this Presents going to be essentially the other half of the Pokémon Day Presents, where they can now safely talk about projects that are coming to the Switch 2? Not that the February Presents was half an event or anything, it was as lengthy as the average Pokémon Presents usually is. But was there perhaps an extra thing or two that would have been in that Presents had the Switch 2's release cycle been sitting a little further along the road? So that is now what a lot of people are speculating about. Pokémon projects for the Switch 2. Gen 5 remakes, as always, have found their place in that speculation. Honestly, I'd be surprised. I think the next thing after Legends ZA is going to be Gen 10. Unless it's another Ilka faithful remake job that's being completely outsourced. I will never rule that out. I don't think Pokemon saw Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl as a failure at all. They sold pretty okay. I genuinely don't see any reason why they wouldn't do the same thing again. What if it was both Black and White and Black 2 White 2 at the same time? Like Black and Black 2 on one cartridge and White 2 on another, in that same BDSP style? I'm not going to speculate on Gen 5 remakes any more than that because what they're going to do with Unova next is frankly too messy to predict without sounding silly. And we've been around that circle so many times at this point that I think we're all feeling a bit dizzy. So let's move on. I've seen a few whisperings, and when I say whisperings I mean baseless guesswork on social media, about Generation 10 itself being revealed in this Presents. Wouldn't that be something? That would make sense to me on one condition. That Gen 10 would be releasing on the 30th anniversary. That's something that people have talked about for a while. It'd be quite a symbolic thing. What day does Pokémon Day 2026 fall on actually? Oh, it's a Friday. Well, doesn't that just line up perfectly? It's like the universe is begging for it to happen. But yeah, it's kind of one of two things in my mind. Either Gen 10 gets announced on the 30th anniversary, or it gets released on the 30th anniversary. If Gen 10 is dropping in late 2026, like the usual November release, First of all, based on previous release days, it's very possible that it drops on my birthday. But also, they're not going to unload a huge reveal like that on a random Tuesday in July the year before. That would be strange. They'd wait until Pokemon Day, surely. Imagine though, if the first scenario there happened. Big Gen 10 reveal, and it's releasing on the 30th anniversary, February 27, 2026. Although, would that just kill all the hype for Pokemon Legends ZA? Probably, let's be honest. Look, I've said a couple of times before, Legends ZA is kind of a layover game for me. I'm excited for it, but it's very much an appetizer for me while we wait for Generation 10. But I still want this game to have its day in the sun, you know? And I imagine Game Freak does as well. So that's perhaps the biggest argument in my mind for why Gen 10 won't be touched in this Presents. But saying that, if it was to release on the 30th anniversary, it kinda needs to be announced around 6 or 7 months before. It's a messy hypothetical. I don't think it'll be touched on yet, but crazy things do happen. Just circling back around to Pokemon Champions 2, especially if that game is going to be the new vehicle for the VGC side of the competitive scene. There's probably a lot of info that needs to get out there before it releases. We don't know when that game is dropping either. I see a lot of people placing their bets on mid-2026, that sounds about right. But would that then interfere with Gen 10's whole hype cycle? If that just dropped on us while we're still getting teaser trailers for those huge games? There are so many ways this could go. But we have very little to go on right now when it comes to Pokemon Champions, so I am expecting to hear something about it in this Presents. If I was to stamp down one solid prediction outside of Legends ZA info, it would be more Pokemon Champions details, possibly even a release date. Of course, it might not be as crazy as a lot of us are thinking. This is actually why I don't do predictions or speculations that often. I largely prefer to just stay in my lane talking about things that actually exist already. It could just be a shorter Presents aimed at giving a large chunk of info on Pokemon Legends ZA. Maybe even the final large chunk before release. Maybe that's the strategy this time around, instead of drip feeding tiny info bites every 3 or 4 weeks. This has all stemmed from the Presents being announced nearly 2 months ahead of time. It's something Pokemon doesn't do. So naturally your brain goes to the unexpected in terms of the contents of that Presents as well. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. I'm excited to see how it's going to play out. In the meantime, what do you guys think we're going to see in the July Presents? Legends ZA, remakes, Gen 10, Champions, something else entirely? Use the comments section as your safe space to be as chaotic as you want with your predictions. Go wild. Be sure to drop a like on the video while you're there, that helps me a lot. Subscribe for more Pokemon content. Special thanks as always to our channel members. And join the Discord, we're chatting about all of this over there as well. Thanks for watching, see you next time.